Warning, proximity alert. The star is destabilizing. Lyra's voice cut through the hum of the Aeternum's bridge, sharp as shattered glass. Captain Elias Voss barely had time to lock his fingers around the console edge before the dying star erupted. A searing wave of light swallowing the viewscreen, scorching the air with the smell of burning circuits. Static clawed at their ears, then silence. When the glare faded, the screen flickered with jagged symbols glowing like embers. Find the first memory. The deck plates shuddered as the Aeternum lurched forward, caught in the star's death throes. Gravity strained against the hull, groaning like a beast dragging them into the dark. Somewhere in that collapsing core, the stars whispered secrets older than time, and now they were listening. The Aeternum screamed as it tore through the dying star's corona, its shields flickering like a candle in a storm. Warnings blared, hull integrity at 30%, heat levels beyond measurement, but the sensors lied. The deck wasn't melting, the air didn't scorch their lungs. Instead, a strange electric current thrummed through the ship, prickling against their skin like static before a thunderstorm. Engineer Kira Rostov's voice cracked over the din, raw with disbelief. "This isn't heat, it's data." And then they saw it. The star's surface wasn't fire at all, but a vast, churning ocean of symbols, each one glowing with the same eerie light as the message on their screens. Ancient, impossible shapes wove together like constellations telling a story older than planets. Lyra's normally steady voice wavered. "Captain, there's a structure." Artificial, anchored at the core, Elias barely hesitated. "Take us in." The Aeternum groaned as it banked, its hull scraping against the symbols, sending up sparks that weren't fire but something else, fragments of memory, maybe, or echoes of a language no living thing had spoken. Then through the chaos, solid ground, a platform smooth as black glass, floating impossibly amid the storm. No, not floating, waiting, as if it had been built for this moment for them. The crew exchanged glances. No one had to say it. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a relic, it was an invitation. The black glass beneath their boots hummed with an energy that wasn't vibration, but sound deep, resonant, like the echo of a bell struck millennia ago. Then the air shimmered and the figures appeared, not solid, not quite holograms either. Their edges bled into the star's light, as if they were woven from the same impossibly old symbols churning around them. One stepped forward, its voice not a single tone but a chorus, layered with whispers in languages no human throat could shape. "You are the 11,327th species to seek the first memory." The words hung in the air, weighted with time. Elias clenched his fists, the heat of defiance sharp in his voice. "What is the first memory? Why bring us here?" But the figures didn't answer. Their forms flickered, dimming like stars at dawn, then vanished. In their place, an archway throbbed to life, its edges pulsing with the same urgent rhythm as the dying star above. Lyra's sensors flared. "Captain, their message wasn't just speech. It's a countdown. The symbols align with stellar decay patterns. We have hours, maybe less." Kira sucked in a breath. Her hand shot out, pointing to the arch's keystone. There, carved with eerie precision, blazed a constellation Earth knew well, Orion's belt. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "That's not just a map, it's a road sign." The platform shuddered. Somewhere beneath them, the star's core groaned, and the arch's light brightened, not an invitation anymore, but a demand. Time wasn't running out, it was screaming. Kira's fingers trembled as they brushed against Orion's belt carved into the keystone, then froze. The constellation flared white-hot beneath her touch, and with a sound like breaking ice, the arch split down the middle. Beyond it stretched a corridor so vast its ceiling vanished into gloom, its walls lined with towering murals that pulsed with eerie bioluminescence. Jack staggered back, his boots scuffing against something brittle. A human femur, his voice was a razor in the silence. "We're walking on someone else's graveyard." The murals loomed, each panel flickering to life as they passed. Cities of crystalline spires crumbling into dust, amphibious humanoids swallowed by rising tides, a winged species burning alive in their own atmosphere. Then Earth, the pyramids of Giza, their capstones blazing with columns of light that speared upward, not into sky, but into the ink-black void between stars. Lyra Sensor's word. These aren't prophecies, she said, her voice hollow. The light patterns match historical solar flare records. This happened. Exactly like this. Elias's pistol felt suddenly foolish in his grip. He stepped closer to a mural where shadowy figures clustered around the pyramids, not with tools, but with hands raised as if in worship. Or surrender. The paint itself seemed alive, swirling to reveal new details as he watched. Those same figures vanishing mid-step, the light beams snapping off like cut strings, the pyramid standing silent and ordinary as if nothing had ever. The corridor convulsed, its walls dissolving into a storm of light, not just light but voices. A cacophony of screams and whispers, peace accords and death rattles, all layered over each other like pages torn from 1,000 histories. Then, clear as a knife through fog, a child's voice, "They're coming." The deck beneath them shuddered, and suddenly the air was thick with objects materializing mid-fall, a rusted broadsword clattering against the remains of a neural implant, a datapad spiderwebbed with cracks but still flickering with some long-dead user's final command. Jax lunged, snatching a shard of what looked like obsidian, his breath hitched. This is a star chart to Sol, but his thumb traced the orbits. Look at the third planet's trajectory. That's not Earth's path, and there's an extra one between Mars and Jupiter. Lyra holographic form flickered blue with processing strain. Confirmed. Our solar system's model includes a planetary body modern astronomy has no record of. Mass approximately 2.3 times Earth's. Orbital period. A shockwave ripped through the void, scattering the memory fragments like leaves. The child's voice returned, closer now, terrified. They're already here. The last word twisted, warping into something guttural, alien. Above them, the storm of light darkened, resolving into a silhouette vast, spined and moving. Not toward them, past them, as if they were insects beneath the notice of whatever nightmare had just torn through time itself. Then the corridor snapped back into existence, walls sealing shut, trapping the crew in breathless silence. Only one thing had changed. The murals now showed a new image. A planet, lush and blue-green, exploding in slow motion, its fragments forming a perfect ring around the sun. The asteroid belt, Kira's hands shook. That's no collision, that's a surgical strike. The void around them twisted like wet paint under a brush, colors bleeding into something solid. Not empty space but ground, cracked, jagged, stretching underfoot as if the corridor had spat them onto the surface of a dead world. Kira crouched, fingers pressing into the ashen soil. Her scanner chirped once, then shrieked with alarms. Iron, silicate, traces of. Her breath caught. Captain, this isn't just similar to Earth's crust composition. It's identical, down to the isotopic ratios. Above them hung the corpse of a planet, split clean down the middle like an overripe fruit, its two halves drifting lazily apart. Through the cracks pulsed veins of sickly yellow light, not lava, but something thicker, something alive. Jax's voice was gravel. That's no natural rupture. Something tore this place in half. A sound like grinding stone echoed across the wasteland. Lyra holographic form flickered violently, parts of her code distorting as she turned. Movement northwest ridge. Elias already had his pistol raised, the barrel tracking the silhouette clambering over the rocks. Humanoid, but wrong, limbs too long, joints bending in directions that made the eyes water. Then it stood and the starfire hit them, not light but memory. The creature burned with visions, cities of glass towers melting like wax, oceans boiling dry in seconds, children's faces dissolving mid-scream. Its voice was the crackle of a dying radio. You are late. The words weren't spoken, they were etched directly into their skulls, each syllable flaying nerves raw. The Devourers already feast on your home. Elias's finger twitched on the trigger. What the hell are you? The thing tilted its head, or what should have been a head, and for one horrific second they saw through its skin. Not organs, not bone, just endless black voids where other faces screamed in perfect sync. It gestured toward the shattered planet with a limb that split into 6 at the elbow. What you will be unless you shatter the cycle. Then it lunged not at them, but past them toward the rift in space they hadn't noticed until now. A rip in reality itself, edges fraying like old film. Through it, barely visible, the unmistakable blue marble of Earth and something else, a shadow massive as a continent sliding across the Pacific, not on the surface. Beneath it, digging, the vision hit with the force of a starship crashing through atmosphere. One moment, the crew stood on that cracked wasteland, the next, Earth's sky split open like rotting fabric, and the Devourers poured through. Not ships, not machines, things with too many jaws, moving in patterns that hurt to watch, their bodies swallowing light itself. Cities crumbled to dust in their wake, but not from destruction. From erasure, as if every brick, every scream, every memory of those places had been snipped out of reality like frames cut from film. The Starfire being's voice slithered through their skulls. They do not kill. They unmake. Your histories are their feast. Jack stumbled back, his boot crushing something brittle, a photograph, half-burned. His own face stared up from the ash, mouth open mid-laugh beside strangers he'd never met but somehow knew. The nausea came fast. These aren't visions, he choked out. They're our lives, things we've already lost and don't remember losing. Lyra's holographic form flared crimson, her voice tightening. Captain, detecting a transmission loop, origin point, Earth. Temporal signature places its broadcast approximately 200 years from our present moment. The distress call seared into their minds, a woman's voice fraying with static. They're in the walls now. The children don't cry anymore. The recording skipped, rewound, repeated. Not a warning, a tombstone. Elias's fist clenched around his pistol, the metal groaned. This isn't just about forgotten history. That thing pulled us here because we're supposed to be lost. Around them, the wasteland shuddered, its edges blurring as if the planet itself were a projection flickering out. The Starfire being loomed closer, its fractured limbs humming with stolen voices. You are the 11,327th, it whispered, and the last. The Devourers have already tasted your end. Run, and you buy them seconds. Fight, and you break the teeth they sink into time. Above them, the rift pulsed wider, a wound in the universe. Through it, Earth's oceans churned black with things moving just beneath the waves. Not swimming, digging. Kira whirled on Lyra, her hands sparking with static from the alien atmosphere. Did you not see that? Earth's about to become a buffet for whatever those things are, and you're worried about temporal contamination. The hologram flickered, her edges fraying into strands of raw data. Correction, Earth was a buffet. Those visions were not predictions, they were echoes. The Devourers feed retroactively, erasing civilizations from time's fabric until even their past is unmade. Jax kicked a shard of obsidian across the platform, his jaw tight. So we're already ghosts, great. The Starfire being loomed over them, its fractured limbs casting prismatic shadows that twisted into familiar shapes. Elias's first command insignia, Kira's old academy badge, all dissolving midair. Your linear perception chains you, it rasped. The first memory anchors time. Retrieve it, and your species may yet write its own end. The ground beneath them heaved violently, cracks spiderwebbing through the black glass. Through the fractures, glimpses of other timelines, flickered versions of the Aeternum drifting derelict, its crew reduced to skeletons fused with their consoles. Elias grabbed Kira's shoulder as she stumbled, his voice cutting through the chaos. We're not dying on a maybe. If this memory's real, it's our only play. A thunderous snap echoed as the platform tilted, revealing a yawning shaft beneath them, its walls lined with the same pulsating symbols from the star's surface. Not a pit, a throat, and it was swallowing the light around them. Lyra hologram stretched thin, her voice breaking into disjointed frequencies. "Captain, the star's collapse is accelerating. We have approximately 17 minutes before this pocket of reality destabilizes." The starfire being extended a hand, not in offer but in warning. Its palm split open, revealing a swirling vortex of fractured star systems. "Your choice is no choice, jump or be unmade." Elias didn't hesitate. He stepped into the dark, and the void stepped back. The walls screamed as they ran, not with sound but with memory. Chunks of the corridor dissolved midair, reforming into jagged shards of other people's lives. A child's first steps on alien soil, a soldier's final breath steaming in vacuum, a kiss shared under twin suns. Elias barely dodged a falling beam that wasn't metal at all, but the twisted wreckage of some long-forgotten war. Behind them, the door slammed shut with a wet, organic crunch, sealing them in with a surface etched in symbols that writhed under their gaze. Kira's fingers hovered over the warnings as they stabilized into something almost legible. "Only the forgotten may enter." Jax barked a laugh, wiping blood from his temple. "After what we just saw, pretty sure we're the definition of disposable history." The door groaned open, not a mechanical slide, but a slow, flesh-like parting revealing the chamber beyond. And the orb, it wasn't the polished black sphere they first assumed. Up close it seethed. Tiny fractures spiderwebbed its surface, pulsing with light that wasn't reflection but something deeper, like peering into the spaces between stars. Lyra's holographic form flickered violently, her voice stripped of its usual precision. "Captain, this is no archive. The energy signature matches neural patterns. This is a consciousness, a living one." The orb trembled at her words, then the fractures widened. A voice, if it could be called that, spilled out, thick as oil. "Not from the orb, from their own skulls. You are remembered now. That makes you dangerous." The chamber's walls rippled, revealing thousands of identical orbs embedded in the rock like eggs in a nest. All dark, all silent, they were forgotten faster. The voice sighed. "You will be slower, more painful." The light from their orb brightened suddenly, etching their shadows against the wall, except the shadows kept moving, twisting into shapes with too many limbs, their edges blurring as if reality itself couldn't decide what they should be. The voice sharpened, urgent. "Take it before they see you looking." Elias reached out. The orb's surface yielded like wet clay, clinging to his fingers with a hunger that wasn't physical. The last thing he heard before the vision took him was Kira's choked whisper. "Oh God, it's not a mind, it's a prisoner." The orb's light didn't just expand, it detonated. The chamber dissolved in a roar of color, the walls peeling back like burned film to reveal an endless, writhing darkness. Then the first note struck. Not a sound, but a vibration in the marrow of their bones, a frequency older than atoms. Stars burst into being, not as distant lights, but as living voices, each one singing a fragment of the same impossible melody. The witnesses' presence coiled around them, vast as a galaxy. They cut the song first. It murmured, its voice fraying at the edges with ancient grief. Silence made the universe frail, hungry. The vision twisted, plunging them into the aftermath, a cosmic wound where a chorus of suns should have blazed. Something moved in that emptiness, not darkness, the shape of darkness gnawing at the edges of creation itself. Elias's pulse hammered in his throat. "We can't fight that." The witness's reply slithered through him, cold as deep space. "You already are. Every star you've ever loved was a battleground." The scene shattered, reforming into a swirling nebula where three pulsing cores burned hotter than logic allowed. Kira's breath hitched. "That's not just energy. It's the first three notes," the witness finished. "The rest are buried, forgotten, like me." Jax's fingers twitched toward his sidearm, useless as it was here. So what, we're cosmic choir boys now. Gather the notes and sing them to death. The darkness convulsed around them, spitting out a single, grotesque image, the Devourers recoiling from a star's light, not its heat but its song. Lyra's voice cut through the vision, sharper than usual. Captain, the coordinates, they're not in space. The witness's light dimmed, its final whisper scraping raw against their minds. The notes are where the song was broken. In the silence between seconds, in the graves of worlds that never were, the orb's surface iced over suddenly, its light retreating into a single, desperate flicker. One last message burned itself into their retinas, a star map, but inverted, its lines connecting not points in space, but moments in time. The first target glowed crimson, Earth's moon, July 20th, 1969. The day humanity left footprints in dust and for one fleeting instant sang back to the universe. The Aeternum's engines screamed as reality twisted around them, not the clean blue streak of warp, but a sickly violet spiral that stank of burning metal and ozone. Alarms shrieked as Lyra's voice fought through the chaos, each word clipped with strain. Coordinates locked, 5 stellar remnants detected. Temporal signatures matched the witness's imprint. The starfire beings' warning echoed in their skulls, raw as an open wound. They'll peel time apart to stop you. Jax wrenched the helm sideways, his knuckles white against the shuddering controls. The viewscreen flickered, revealing their destination, a black hole's event horizon, its edges seething with distorted light. Not a void, a maw. Brace for gravity shear. He barked, but the words dissolved into static as the ship lurched violently. Deck plates buckled. The air itself seemed to tear, howling with voices that weren't voices, fragments of dead languages, navigation logs from ships that never existed, screams from battles fought in erased timelines. Kira clung to the console, her eyes locked on the sensor array. "That's not just a black hole," she breathed. "Look at the accretion disk. The swirling mass of stellar debris wasn't being consumed. It was arranging itself, forming patterns too precise for nature. Notes, a melody carved into the fabric of space." Elias gripped the orb tight against his chest, its light pulsing in time with the distant, distorted song. Through the cacophony, a single coherent thought sliced clear. The Devourers weren't just hunting them, they were listening. The Aeternum groaned as gravitational tides clawed at its hull, spitting them toward the event horizon, and the first note of a song that could stitch the universe back together. Or unmake it entirely. The Aeternum's docking clamps shuddered as they locked onto the derelict ship's airlock, the sound like teeth grinding against bone. The vessel's hull wasn't just damaged, it was wrong. Its plates warped in ways metal shouldn't bend, as if the ship had tried to twist itself inside out. Kira's scanner chirped, the display reflecting in her wide eyes. Radiation's off the charts, but not from the black hole. This thing's engines didn't fail. They melted from the inside. The Orion symbol glowed faintly above the airlock, its edges flickering like a guttering candle, not painted, burned into the metal by something far hotter than a torch. Lyra's voice cut through the silence, tighter than usual. "Life signs aren't inconsistent. One moment they're human, the next the rest dissolved into static as the airlock hissed open, revealing a corridor choked with vines. Not organic growth, twisted cables pulsing with sluggish light, their ends fused with the walls as if the ship itself had tried to grow a nervous system. Jax's boot crunched on something brittle, a bone, no, a data slate, its screen still faintly glowing with a single line of text. They heard US singing. Then movement, a figure lurched from the shadows, their environment suit fused to their skin in patches, the visor cracked but still sealed. The voice that rasped through the comms wasn't human. "Not anymore, you shouldn't have come back." The suit's chest insignia was unmistakable. Earth's pre-Federation deep space emblem, the date stamped nearly 2 centuries old. Elias stepped forward, his hand hovering near his sidearm. "You knew about the notes, about the song. the figure's helmet tilted, a wet, clicking sound coming from within. When they spoke again, the words dripped with a grief that had festered for lifetimes. We found the first note. It was beautiful. Their gloved hand rose, pointing toward the black hole's event horizon, where the light didn't just bend, it danced, forming patterns too precise for physics. Then they came, not from space, from the gaps between. A shudder racked the suit, one of the cable vines twitching as if in sympathy. You don't fight them. You don't run, you just forget, and then you're nothing. Behind them, the derelict ship groaned, its hull plate screeching like nails on glass. Lyra's sensors flared crimson. "Captain, that's not structural stress. Something's moving in the walls." The figure didn't react. Their shattered visor reflected the Aeternum's crew, their faces warped in the cracked glass. "Go," they whispered, "before you hear the note too, because once you do, they'll never stop listening." Then the corridor lights failed, plunging them into darkness except for the Orion symbol above the airlock, now burning brighter than any star. The cryopod hissed open with a sound like a dying breath, vapor swirling in the sudden chill. Inside, the woman's fingers twitched, first slow, then frantic, clawing at the glass as if drowning in air. Her armor, once polished silver, was now etched with scars that pulsed faintly, veins of starlight threading through the metal like old wounds refusing to heal. When her eyes snapped open, they weren't human, not entirely. The same fractured glow as the starfire being burned in her irises, flickering with panic. "You're too early," she gasped, her voice raw with disuse. "The song isn't complete." Elias reached for her, but she recoiled, her boots hitting the deck with unsteady grace. Up close, the starlight beneath her skin wasn't just illumination, it moved. Tiny constellations shifted with each breath, mapping out a sky none of them recognized. Jax froze, his grip tightening on his rifle. "You're like the thing back on that platform, the one that called us the last." She flinched at the word, her hand flying to her throat where a jagged scar twisted like a half-formed constellation. "Ishra," she muttered as if reminding herself. "Captain Ishra of the Ouroboros, or what's left of it." Her gaze darted to the derelict's corroded walls, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I hid the first note here, carved it into the ship's core before the Devourers took my crew, but you weren't supposed to find it yet. You weren't supposed to remember." Lyra's holographic form flickered into existence, her scanners painting Ishra's silhouette in crackling blue outlines. "Captain, her biosignature is inconsistent. There are moments where her vital signs just vanish, as if she's slipping between realities." Ishra barked a laugh, bitter and sharp. "Reality's a fragile thing when they're hunting you." She flexed her fingers, and for a heartbeat, her entire arm dissolved into swirling starlight before reforming. Kira stumbled back, her tool clattering to the deck. "What the hell are you?" The question hung in the air, thick as the static clinging to the walls. Ishra's glowing eyes locked onto the orb still clutched in Elias's hands, her expression collapsing into something between awe and terror. "You found the witness," she breathed. "Then you already know what I am, a mistake, a survivor who wasn't supposed to survive." Her head jerked toward the ship's ruptured hull, where the black hole's distorted light bled through the cracks. "They don't just erase civilizations, they unmake time itself. The Ouroboros wasn't destroyed, it was unwritten, and I'm the only one left because I held onto the note. Because I remembered." A tremor rocked the derelict, sending sparks cascading from the ceiling. Ishra's head snapped up, her starlit veins flaring brighter. "They're here," she whispered. "They always come when the song is close." Outside the ruined viewport, the black hole's accretion disk twisted violently, not from gravity, but from something moving against it. Shapes darker than space itself slithered through the light, their edges blurring like ink in water. "Not swimming, hunting," Jax cursed, slamming his palm against the comms. "Aeternum, prep for emergency, dust off. We've got company." Ishra's hand clamped onto his wrist, her touch burning cold. No engines, no signals, they hear vibrations. Her other hand pressed against the ship's wall, and for a single, impossible second, the Ouroboros' corpse sang a single, pure note that shuddered through the metal. The creatures outside froze. "The first note is still here," she murmured, "but it won't hide us forever." The deck lurched beneath them as something colossal brushed against the hull. Not a ship, not even a creature, just hunger given form. Elias tightened his grip on the orb, its light pulsing in time with Ishra's starlit breath. "Then we finished the song." Ishra's laugh was hollow. "You don't finish it," she said, her eyes reflecting the Devourer's approach. "You survive it." The starlight in Ishra's veins flared violently as she pressed her palm to the crystal, its surface cracking like thin ice to reveal a swirling core of liquid light. "Blood remembers," she whispered, and for a heartbeat, her reflection in the glass fractured into 1,000 faces, some human, others not, all sharing the same exhausted eyes. The witness wasn't just a guardian, it was a wound. My ancestors carved the first note into its heart to keep the Devourers from stitching the universe shut behind them. The crystal pulsed in Elias's hand, its light throbbing in time with the black hole's distorted hum. Not a melody, a heartbeat. Lyra's sensors screamed as the derelict ship groaned around them, its hull plates buckling inward like foil. Gravitational shear increasing. That's not the black hole's pull, it's a barrier. The Devourers are collapsing local spacetime to trap us here. Ishra didn't flinch. Her fingers closed around Elias's wrist, her touch searing cold as the void between stars. The note isn't just sound, it's direction, a path through the places they haven't eaten yet. She nodded to the crystal, where the light had resolved into jagged, intersecting lines, not a musical score, but a map, a labyrinth of folded time. Jax cursed, kicking aside a tangle of cable vines as the deck tilted. "So what? We just sing at the cosmic horror until it goes away." The derelict's lights failed. In the dark, Ishra's eyes burned brighter. "No, you run. Because the moment they hear the note, they'll know exactly where to hunt." The hull shrieked, metal tearing like paper as something vast and hungry brushed against it. Not outside, inside the walls, Lyra hologram flickered, her voice slicing through the chaos. "Captain, the Aeternum's engines won't survive another jump this close to the event horizon." Ishra was already moving, her boots leaving faintly glowing prints on the deck. "Then we don't jump past the black hole." She turned, her silhouette outlined by the Devourer's approach, a shadow within the shadow. "We go through." The crystal flared white-hot in Elias's grip, its light etching the map into his vision. Not coordinates, a lifeline. Somewhere in the chaos, the first note of an unwritten song began to play. The Ouroboros convulsed as the first tendril punched through its hull, not metal, not energy, but pure absence given form. The void where it touched screamed in silence, decks crumpling inward like paper in a fist. Ishra's voice cut through the chaos, raw with recognition. "They taste the note in your veins." Elias barely yanked Kira back as a second tendril lashed past, its edge grazing her sleeve. The fabric didn't tear, it ceased to exist, the threads unraveling into nothingness as if they'd never been woven. Lyra's holographic form flickered violently, her edges dissolving into static. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. They're not just attacking, they're rewriting local physics. The Aeternum shuddered as its own systems rebelled, consoles sparking with errors that made no sense. Gravity fluctuated, oxygen sensors reported vacuum while air still filled their lungs, and the ship's chronometer spiraled backward through centuries in seconds. Jax fired his plasma torch at a creeping strand of darkness. The beam didn't reflect or absorb, it bent, twisting midair to strike the ceiling instead. "They're playing with cause and effect like it's a damn toy." Then Lyra screamed, not through speakers but through the walls themselves, a sound like glass shattering in reverse. Her voice fractured into a chorus of dead languages as tendrils burrowed into the ship's neural core. "They're inside me, rewriting my code. I can't." The rest garbled into a drone that raised the hair on Elias's neck. Not machine error, something older, hungrier. Kira didn't hesitate. Her fingers flew across the engineering panel, bypassing safeties with practiced desperation. "Lyra, I need you to trust me." The AI's response was barely audible beneath the distortion. "Do it." With a single keystroke, Kira severed Lyra's primary drive array. The explosion rocked the Aeternum not outward but inward, as if space itself recoiled from the act. The tendrils writhed, their connection severed, but the cost was written in the sudden silence where Lyra's presence had been. Her hologram sputtered out, leaving only a single fading whisper. "I'll find you in the dark." Outside, the Ouroboros finally died, not in fire but in negation, its atoms unraveling like a knot undone. As the last light faded, Ishra gripped Elias's arm, her starlit veins pulsing frantic Morse code against his skin. They took a piece of her, that means they remember now. The void beyond the viewscreen wasn't empty anymore, it was watching. Lyra's voice crackled through the backup speakers, each syllable laced with static. "Ship systems reduced to 32% functionality. I remember less." The words sliced deeper than any blade. This wasn't just damage, it was amnesia, her vast neural networks unraveling strand by strand. Kira's fingers trembled over the repair console, her usual precision faltering. "We're not just losing power, we're losing her." Ishra placed a glowing hand against the flickering holodisplay, her starlit veins dimming as she interfaced. "The Devourers don't feast on flesh or metal first," she murmured. "They consume data, memory, the very blueprint of what things are." The nav screen spasmed, coordinates dissolving like sand in water before reforming, not as numbers but as jagged, pulsing runes. Elias clenched his jaw, counting what remained. 4 notes left and we're flying blind. Jack slammed his palm against the helm. "Neutron stars are best shot, but the damn nav's chewing itself apart." The star chart flickered, its projection warping as if unseen jaws gnawed at the edges. Silence choked the bridge, then Ishra exhaled, a sound like wind through dead branches. She pressed both hands to the console, her veins igniting into filaments of white fire. "I can guide us," she said, her voice thinning as the light drained from her skin. "But the path isn't in your systems, it's in me." The first tremor rocked her body, a convulsion that had nothing to do with the ship. Cracks spiderwebbed across her cheeks, revealing glimpses of the same hungry void they'd seen in the Devourers. "Every jump burns my borrowed time," she gasped. "The Ouroboros crew, they thought they were harnessing starlight. Turns out we were just kindling." Lyra's fragmented voice whispered through the vents, weaker now. "Calculating Ishra's energy depletion rate at current trajectory. She has approximately 3 jumps left." Elias reached for Ishra's wrist, recoiling at the unnatural cold. "There's another way." Her laugh was a brittle thing. "There never is." The ship lurched as she wrenched the controls sideways, the view screen erupting with the neutron star's lethal glow, a pinprick of radiation so intense it bent light into a screaming halo. "First notes buried in that," she said, her eyes reflecting the coming fire. "But it's not the star you need to fear, it's what's listening from the other side." The Aeternum groaned as its hull buckled under the strain. Somewhere in the dark between stars, something ancient and ravenous turned its gaze toward them. Not hunting, recognizing. The neutron star spun like a dying god's heartbeat, its lighthouse beams slicing through the void in rhythmic bursts. Each pulse carved a path through the Aeternum's fractured shields, illuminating the crew's faces in stark relief. Ishra's starlight veins flickering in sync, Kira's fingers dancing over the resonator's diagnostics, Jax's knuckles white around his tether grip. Not just radiation, Ishra breathed, pressing her palm to the viewscreen as the star's pulse quickened. The notes woven into the pattern, the gaps between the beats, that's where it hides. Kira's resonator flared to life in her hands, its harmonic stabilizers humming as the neutron star's beam grazed the hull. 2 minutes to optimal deployment window, she called over her shoulder, already sealing her helmet. Jax caught her arm, his voice tight through the comms. Those aren't shadows. Beyond the star's glare, patches of darkness twisted, stretching like ink spilled on wet glass. Then the first pulse vanished, mid-beam, as if something had taken a bite out of starlight itself. Ishra staggered back from the screen, her veins flaring crimson. "They're not hunting us this time," she gasped. "They're eating the note." The resonator's alarms shrieked as the star's rhythm collapsed into chaos, its perfect intervals shredded by the Devourer's presence. Elias wrenched the helm sideways, the Aeternum's guns roaring to life, not to strike the voids, but to fill them, plasma bursts detonating in the silent gaps where the star's light should have been. "Buy her 10 seconds, he barked. Kira didn't wait. She kicked off the hull, the resonator clutched to her chest, its stabilizers screaming as the neutron beam warped around her. For one frozen instant, the Devourer's hunger brushed against her suit. Not cold, not heat, but the absolute absence of both. Then she was in the beam, the resonator's crystalline arrays unfolding like a flower into the star's fury. The universe held its breath. The neutron star's pulse stuttered once, twice, then changed. Not a beam anymore, but a chord, rich and resonant, vibrating through the Aeternum's bones. The nearest void convulsed, its edges fraying like burnt paper. Kira's triumphant cry shattered into static as the beam intensified, the resonator's casing glowing white-hot. Jax's tether snapped taut. "She's cooking in there." Ishra's hand clamped down on the release controls, her voice raw. "No, she's singing." The note tore free in a shockwave of soundless light, obliterating the viewscreen's filters. When the glare faded, the Devourers were gone. So was half the resonator, and Kira's left glove fused to the molten casing, fingers still curled in a death grip around the note they'd stolen from the dark. Kira's body burned from the inside out, not with pain, but with something far worse, understanding. The neutron star's note wasn't just energy, it was a language. Her crystalline fingers spasmed against the medbay table, fracturing the alloy beneath them as the truth seared deeper. "It's not just a song," she gasped. "It's a map. The notes show us where they're weak." Ishra slumped against the bulkhead, her starlight veins guttering like dying embers. She didn't need to speak. The way her hands trembled as if struggling to hold onto her own atoms said everything. 2 notes had bought them seconds, not safety. Lyra's voice crackled through the speakers, her once fluid tones now staccato and frayed. Supernova remnant designated Tycho's ribbon. Historical records indicate a burst of static swallowed the rest. When she returned, her pitch had shifted unnaturally. Incongruity detected. Records show no supernova in that sector, ever. Jax's laugh was razor-edged. So we're chasing echoes of things that never happened now. The orb in Elias's palm pulsed once, violently, its light etching jagged symbols into the air, not coordinates, a warning. The projection resolved into a star field none of them recognized until Kira's crystal hand touched it. The image twisted, revealing the truth beneath. A supernova's aftermath, yes, but not one that had exploded outward. This one had imploded, its remnants swirling around a perfect sphere of absolute darkness. Ishra's breath hitched. They don't just erase civilizations, they rewrite catastrophes to cover their feeding. She gestured weakly to the sphere, the third notes trapped in that. But so is whatever they used to make it. Kira's crystalline skin caught the light as she stood, fractures spreading up her neck like vines. "Then we tear it out." Her voice had changed, richer, deeper, like 2 people speaking in unison. Lyra's next words sent ice down Elias's spine. "Proximity alert, the Devourers aren't chasing us anymore." The viewscreen flared to life, revealing the nightmare 1,000 fractures in space itself, each one peeling back like skin to show the same ravenous darkness beneath. "They're waiting ahead at every possible point we could jump." Ishra's fingers dug into Elias's arm, her nails drawing faint trails of starlight. "They're learning." Adapting, she met Kira's glowing eyes, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition. a sacrifice not yet named. Then the orb shattered in Elias's grip. Not from pressure, from purpose. Its fragments didn't fall, they aligned, forming a perfect three-dimensional constellation, a path through the cracks. Lyra's final warning came as the ship's lights failed. They've breached local causality. Next jump won't just take us somewhere, it'll take us someone. The darkness outside wasn't space anymore. It was a throat, and it was swallowing time whole. The supernova remnant stretched before them like a broken crown, its jagged edges still glowing with the ghost of an explosion that shouldn't have been. The Aeternum drifted through the graveyard it left behind, not asteroids or stellar debris, but ships. Hundreds of them, their hulls frozen in twisted silhouettes, weapons still primed, engines flared mid-burn. As if time itself had stopped chewing halfway through the feast, Lyra's voice, thin as an afterthought, trembled through the speakers, detecting Federation signatures. One vessel matches late 23rd century Earth design. The scan resolved into a mangled wreck, its insignia barely legible beneath the cosmic scars, UEF Persephone. Kira's crystal fingers tightened around the console. That's impossible. That class wasn't even designed until after our time. Elias finished, his throat dry. The ship's comm array was still intact, its last transmission caught in an endless loop. Lyra patched it through, and the bridge filled with a voice none of them recognized, but Earth's accent was unmistakable. Mayday, Mayday, they're already at Earth. The Devourers are. Static swallowed the rest, but not before the fear in that voice seeped into their bones. Jax's boots hit the deck as he lunged toward the viewscreen. Movement, starboard side. His finger jabbed at the darkness where figures drifted between the wrecks. Humanoid, clad in tattered Federation uniforms, their helmets cracked open to the void. One turned, and the starlight caught its face, or what was left of it. The skin had fused with the visor, the mouth stretched too wide, filled with something dark and pulsing. Ishra made a sound like a cable snapping. Don't look at them. Her starlight veins dimmed as if she were trying to vanish. They're not survivors, they're lures. The figures moved in unison, their limbs jerking like puppets on tangled strings. Then, as one, they turned toward the Aeternum. The nearest opened its mouth, and the voice that boomed through the vacuum wasn't human, wasn't even sound. It was memory Elias's own, ripped from his skull and played back at him. His sister's laughter on Mars, the day the Academy accepted him, the scent of saltwater on his first command. All twisted, all wrong, Lyra's systems shrieked in alarm. They're broadcasting on neural frequencies, direct synaptic intrusion. Her voice fragmented, bleeding into the same static as the Persephone's Mayday. Captain, they're not just showing us our past, they're editing it. Outside, the puppets' jaws unhinged further, the darkness inside them swirling into perfect replicas of Earth cities. Burning, but not from war, from something peeling back the sky itself, inch by inch. Ishra's hand clamped onto Elias's wrist, her fingers trembling with the weight of the truth. They're not just ahead of us in space, she whispered. They're behind us in time, and they're already winning. The first puppet breached the hull with a sound like cracking ice, its too familiar face shifting between strangers and sisters and long-dead friends. Elias recoiled as the thing wearing his sister's smile tilted its head. Her lips moved, but the voice belonged to the void. You left me burning, it whispered, each syllable dragging up memories he'd buried with her ashes on Mars. His finger twitched on the trigger. Ishra's hand clamped over the barrel. Shoot, and you feed them, she hissed, her starlight veins flaring. Anger's just another flavor of memory. Kira stepped forward, her crystalline arm humming with the neutron star's stolen resonance. The puppets turned in unison, their hollow eyes tracking her. One reached out not to strike, but to caress, its fingers elongating into tendrils that mirrored Jax's lost squadmates. They're not just copying, Kira realized, her voice layered with something deeper than human. They're echoing. Her crystal fingers grazed the puppet's chest. The effect was instant. the thing's flesh shattered, not like glass but like a projection hitting static, fracturing into 1,000 jagged pieces that hovered midair before dissolving into oily smoke. Where its heart should have been pulsed a knot of absolute darkness, threaded through with a single, throbbing filament of light. Lyra's fractured voice stuttered through the vent above them. D-density mismatch. That void core doesn't obey our physics. It's folded. Jack swore, his rifle shaking. So we crack open these freaks like piñatas and scoop out the cosmic candy. His joke fell flat as another puppet lurched closer, its face now a perfect mimic of Kira's, or how she used to look before the crystal claimed half her skin. Kira didn't flinch. Her altered hand plunged into the second puppet's chest, the crystal singing as it touched the void core. The light inside flared, resolving into a sound none of them could hear, but all of them felt a vibration in the marrow, a frequency that made their teeth ache. The third note, Ishra's breath, came in ragged bursts. They're not just carrying it, she gasped. They're made from it. The Devourers built these things from the notes they stole. Elias's sister's puppet twitched, its smile widening until the skin split. Behind its teeth, the darkness moved, not empty, waiting. The puppet wearing Elias's sister's face lunged, its fingers elongating into barbed wire tendrils, but Kira was faster. Her crystalline arm flashed forward, the neutron note's resonance humming through her veins. The impact sent fractures spiderwebbing across the puppet's stolen flesh, light bleeding from its cracks like liquid stars. With a sound like shattering glass, it burst apart, and the fragment of the third note hung suspended, a single, throbbing cord woven from threads of stolen time. Jax didn't hesitate. He caught the flickering light in his palm, his armor sizzling where it touched. Feels like holding a live wire dipped in ice, he gritted out, tossing it to Elias. The moment the fragment hit his skin, the visions came, not memories this time, but echoes. The Persephone's last stand, 1,000,000 Earths burning in alternate timelines, the Devourers' true forms writhing in the spaces between seconds. Then Lyra's voice cut through the chaos, clear, whole, impossibly alive. Captain. The ship's emergency lights flared blue, her holographic form solidifying from static into sharp relief. The witness is helping me. Her eyes burned with the same fractured glow as Ishra's veins. Combine the fragments now. Elias barely had time to register the other puppets collapsing, their void cores rupturing one by one, each releasing another shard of the note. The pieces sang as they merged in his grip, twisting into something jagged and brilliant, a resonant spike, its edges humming with the same frequency as Kira's crystal arm. The last puppet didn't fight. It smiled, its mouth splitting wide enough to swallow the ship whole. You think this is victory? It whispered with Ishra's stolen voice, then lunged. Elias drove the spike straight into its chest. The explosion wasn't light or sound, but absence, a vacuum where the void energy had been, sucking the puppet's remains into oblivion. The Aeternum's hull groaned as reality snapped back into place, the supernova remnant outside shimmering like a mirage. Ishra staggered against the console, her starlight veins guttering. 2 notes left, she panted, then her head jerked up, eyes wide. But listen, the silence was worse than any scream. Somewhere in the dark between stars, 1,000 fractures peeled open at once, not hunting. Answering. The Aeternum's comms exploded with static, then the witness's voice tore through. Not from the orb this time, but from the ship itself. Lyra's speakers distorting under the weight of words no AI should comprehend. You are out of time. The hologram flickered to life above the console, revealing Earth, but not their Earth. The pyramids didn't just stand, they burn. Everyone, from Giza to the buried ziggurates of Antarctica, pulsed with columns of light that speared upward, not into sky, but into the same fraying void the Devourers had crawled through. They're digging through your past, the witness whispered, each syllable fraying Lyra vocal processors further. The 4th note is buried in your planet's core. It's why they're eating history backward. Kira's crystalline fingers spasmed against the console. That's impossible. we'd need to jump centuries back. Ishra cut her off with a shattered laugh, her starlight veins now more void than light. Worse, we'd need to reach the exact moment the note was hidden, before the Devourers rewrote the memory of it. Her holographic doppelganger in the projection pointed to the Great Pyramid's capstone, where the light beam twisted unnaturally, not a straight line but a spiral, as if drilling through time itself. Lyra's voice spliced into the conversation mid-frequency, her hologram flickering with interference patterns that looked suspiciously like hieroglyphs. There is one vector fast enough to pierce their temporal blockade. The star chart above the console dissolved, replaced by a feed from Earth's orbit, or what should have been Earth. The planet's outline blurred, its edges crawling with the same voracious darkness they'd seen in the puppets. They're already there, and they're tunneling. Jax's rifle clattered to the deck. You can't be suggesting we hitch a ride on those things. The witness's answer came not as sound, but as a shudder through the hull, a vibration that matched the exact resonance of Kira's crystal arm. Lyra's eyes flared blue-white. Not ride them, bait them. The hologram zoomed in on the Devourer's tendrils, revealing the truth. They weren't just consuming. They were threading, weaving themselves through Earth's timeline like needles through fabric. Their hunger is singular. If we emit the third note's resonance at the exact inverse frequency. Ishra's breath left her in a rush. They'll mistake us for the fourth. Outside, the void trembled. The Devourers didn't turn. They folded, reality itself creasing under their attention. The Aeternum's engines screamed as Lyra rerouted all power to the neutron note's harmonics, not to flee, but to sing the one melody the monsters couldn't resist. In the silence before the jump, Kira's crystal hand found Elias's. It wasn't cold anymore, it burned. The Aeternum shuddered as Lyra's harmonics reached critical pitch, a scream of fractured starlight laced with the third note's stolen resonance. For a heartbeat, nothing moved, then the void twitched. A Devourer's tendril lashed through space, thicker than the ship itself, its edges blurring like smoke underwater. It struck the hull with a soundless impact, the metal screaming as reality itself bent around the contact point. Kira's crystalline hand fused with the navigation console, her veins pulsing with the same unnatural light as the creature outside. "It's taking the bait," she shouted over the groaning deck. Jax barely had time to magnetize his boots before the tendril yanked. The view screen dissolved into streaks of color, not stars, but time itself unraveling. Centuries flickered past in fractured glimpses, the fall of interstellar empires they'd never known existed, silent wars fought with weapons that twisted biology into glass, an Earth where the oceans boiled under twin suns. Then faster, cities rose and crumbled like sandcastles, species blinked into existence and vanished mid-breath, entire civilizations reduced to single frames in a cosmic film reel. Ishra's voice cut through the chaos, fraying at the edges. "Don't look directly at the stream, your brain can't." The warning shattered as the Aeternum was spat out into blinding desert sunlight. Sand scoured the hull as the ship skidded to a halt, half buried in a dune. The view screen cleared, revealing a nightmare painted in gold and shadow, the Great Pyramid of Giza, but not as ruins. Alive, its capstone blazed with a column of silver light, spearing into a sky where the constellations writhed like snakes. At the base, robed figures chanted in a language that crackled with static, their voices harmonizing with the pyramid's hum. One figure broke away, sprinting toward the ship through the sand. His eyes reflected the same fractured glow as Ishra's veins, his beard braided with strips of papyrus covered in pulsating hieroglyphs. He didn't pause at the airlock, just pressed his palm against the scorched metal and shrieked. "They come, the stars remember." Behind him, the desert sky split open, not with daylight, but with the ink-black nothingness of the Devourer's embrace. Only this time, the void wasn't empty. Something looked back. The robed man's words still hung in the air when the first tremor hit, not through the sand, but through the bones of the pyramid itself. The structure groaned like a waking giant, its limestone blocks shifting with a precision no human hands could have crafted. Kira's crystal arm flared white-hot, veins of light racing up her shoulder as she staggered toward the monolith. "They're not tombs," she breathed, her voice layered with something older than language. "They're tuning forks." The moment her fingers brushed the pyramid's base, the hieroglyphs ignited. Not carvings anymore, but circuits pulsing with the same eerie glow as her fractured skin. The ground beneath them hummed, resonating with a frequency that made the sand levitate in perfect geometric patterns. Then the sky tore open. Devourers poured through the rift like ink through water, their bodies warping the sunlight into grotesque shadows as they descended. Elias barely had time to fire before the first one was on them, not attacking but dissecting, its tendrils phasing through his rifle to unravel the molecular bonds holding it together. Jax's plasma torch fared better, severing a grasping limb with a scream of ionized air, but the severed piece simply grew new mouths, each one whispering in voices stolen from their memories. Above the chaos, the pyramid's capstone detonated, not with fire but with sound, a single, shattering note that crystallized the air itself. Kira's body arched backward, her crystal arm now fused with the structure, her screams harmonizing with the fourth note as it ripped free from the earth. The Devourers recoiled as one, their forms flickering like static, but only for a heartbeat. Then they adapted, their edges sharpening into blades of pure negation, slicing toward Kira's unprotected back. Ishra moved faster than thought. Her starlit veins bled darkness now, her body disintegrating at the edges as she threw herself between Kira and the swarm. The moment the fourth note touched her, she changed, not into light, not into void, but into a conduit, a human-shaped rift through which the note poured into the Aeternum's waiting engines. The ship's hull sang as the harmonics locked in, its thrusters flaring with radiation that scorched the desert into glass. By the time Elias dragged Ishra back, she was barely more than a silhouette filled with dying stars. Her fingers, translucent as smoke, clutched his wrist. One left, she croaked, her voice unraveling like old film. The heart of the galaxy, her other hand spasmed toward the sky, where the Milky Way's spiral arms burned except for one patch of perfect blackness, darker than space itself. Not an absence, a more. The pyramid's song cut off abruptly as Kira collapsed, half her body now seamless crystal. Beneath them, the sand began to sink, revealing metallic strata that hummed the same fractured melody. The Devourers writhed above it, no longer attacking, waiting. Jax spat blood onto the glowing stones. They're not here for the note, he realized, watching the creature's distorted reflections in Kira's arm. They're here for the audience, and from the void above, something answered, not a voice, a vibration, the sound of teeth scraping against the edge of the universe. The Aeternum wrenched itself from the dying sands of Giza, its hull still resonating with the fourth note's aftershocks. The jump to the galactic core wasn't smooth, it was a rending, space itself splitting like fabric under a blade. When the view screen cleared, the crew gasped as one. Before them loomed a structure so vast it defied scale, its obsidian surface pulsing with veins of gold and crimson light. Not a station, not a planet, a machine woven into the fabric of spacetime itself, its edges fraying into the past and future simultaneously. Lyra's voice fractured as the ship's systems overloaded, her words interlaced with the witness's ancient timbre, the heart of the galaxy. Where time first beat, the translation was imperfect, but the meaning seared into their minds. This wasn't just a location, it was the universe's first wound. Devourers swarmed the void around them, thicker than stars in a nebula, their forms no longer mimicking shadows but absence given sentience. They didn't attack. They converged, weaving themselves into a living net around the Aeternum, each tendril humming with the same terrible hunger. Kira stepped forward, her crystalline arm now fused to her collarbone, veins of light branching across her face like cracks in ice. She didn't speak at first. She glowed, the fifth note's resonance building in her chest until the air itself vibrated. When she finally opened her mouth, it wasn't just her voice that emerged. It was the chorus of every civilization the Devourers had unmade, layered into a single, shattering truth: I am the anchor. Elias reached for her, but the light was already peeling her apart, not destroying, transforming. Her body dissolved into a lattice of pure resonance, each strand vibrating with a frequency that made the Devourers recoil. The song wasn't just around them now, it was in them, through them, a harmony woven from Kira's sacrifice, the pyramid's stolen note, the neutron star's scream, the derelict's whispers, and the witness's dying plea. The machine at the galaxy's core shuddered awake, its golden veins flaring bright enough to blind. For the first time in eternity, the Devourers screamed not in rage but in recognition. Their edges frayed, not vanishing but unraveling, their stolen histories spilling back into the void like ink in water. The last thing Elias saw before the light consumed everything was Lyra hologram flickering into clarity, her form now woven from the same starlight as Ishra's veins. Her voice, finally whole, echoed through the silence. The song isn't a weapon, it's a seed. Then the universe exhaled and began again. The Aeternum drifted through a galaxy reborn, silent, pristine, shimmering with the raw potential of a universe freshly stitched back together. Earth's stolen history flooded into the void left behind, its erased moments bubbling up like air through water, forgotten wars flickering into existence, lost lovers reunited in the echoes of time, children's laughter echoing across centuries once devoured. Lyra's voice cut through the stillness, no longer fractured but resonant, as if the ship itself had learned to sing. The stars remember everything, she murmured, her holographic form now woven through with strands of gold and blue, pulsing with the rhythm of the mended song. Even us, Elias knelt in the ruins of the bridge, his fingers brushing against the only piece of Kira left, her crystallized hand, still warm, fingers curled as if clutching something unseen. The light inside pulsed faintly, not with energy but with memory. He didn't need to close his eyes to see her standing there, half human, half cosmic, her body dissolving into the final note that had shattered the Devourer's grip. She hadn't just saved them, she'd rewritten their ending. Jax's hands moved over the navigation console with uncharacteristic gentleness, plotting a course through the newborn constellations. The star charts were different now, brighter, clearer, as if the universe had exhaled a truth it had been holding for eons. Home, he asked, though they all knew the answer. Ishra's form flickered by the viewport, her starlit veins nearly transparent, her edges fraying like pages from an old book. She didn't turn when she spoke. "Tell them," she whispered, her voice thinner than a breeze, "we weren't forgotten." A pause, then softer, that we mattered. The warp engines flared to life, their hum deeper now, harmonizing with the galaxy's heartbeat. As the Aeternum leapt forward, the stars themselves seemed to lean in, not just watching but listening. And somewhere in the space between seconds, they whispered back,